Here's looking at you, kid. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. What? Like it's hard? There's a reason why I am not a Hollywood actor, but there is something magic about an iconic movie moment where you watch the performer deliver a classic line and the reaction of the others on screen. So what changes if these lines aren't uttered by real people, but by an AI entity? Because the latest performer looking to break into Hollywood isn't human, it's AI. It has a name, Tilly Norwood. She's young, brunette, she has brown eyes and what sounds like an English accent, and she has a show reel. It sees her fleeing explosions, preparing to fight a monster, having a romantic moment in a historic drama. But yes, she's an AI-generated creation made by an artificial intelligence talent studio. And the studio's CEO says a lot of entertainment companies are interested in signing deals with Tilly. Not surprisingly, actual human stars like Emily Blunt and Whoopi Goldberg are not keen. And the Hollywood union SAG-AFTRA has denounced it as having no life experience and no emotion. But the real question is, what do audiences think? How do AI performers affect living, breathing creatives? And really, would you buy a ticket to see an AI star on the big screen? I'd love to know if it would change your mind about buying a ticket or make you hit pause and choose something else to watch. Do you care if the actors on your screen are AI or not? Well, some of the people in showbiz to talk to me about it today are Katina Michael, a professor of technology, strategy and innovation and a visiting research scientist at the University of Sydney, and Robert Sparrow, a professor of philosophy at Monash University. But I want to start with a voice who will probably sound familiar to you. Singer and songwriter Karen Jacobsen is the original Aussie voice of Apple's virtual assistant Siri. Hey, Karen.
G'day.
How are you doing? I feel like I want to ask you like what the square root of 91 is or something like that. Tell me about the idea of being a human who kind of became an AI.
You know, I'm listening to your question that you are asking the audience, and I'm so distracted by that because I think, and I'd love to just answer that from my
Yes.
perspective, first of all, which is, of course, the audience is going to buy a ticket. The curiosity is huge. But I think the question I'm coming from is, what kind of society do we want to be? Do we want to respect and honor art from actual human beings or not? And there's so much to say that our systems are setting us up to not value that. It's so many of the creative arts have been devalued in the past 10 years. And, you know, is that the kind of society we want to be, that we don't value that anymore?
So you became the voice of Siri. I'd love to get you to sort of unpack what that process was like, because you draw parallels between what you've experienced and how this character of Tilly Norwood was created.
Absolutely. So I am originally from Mackay in North Queensland. I always had a dream to move to America, and I did that to become a professional singer and songwriter. Along the way, after arriving in New York City, I was asked to audition for a role, and they were looking for a native Australian female voiceover artist living in the northeast of the United States. Went to the job, went to the audition, got the job, recorded for 50 hours to create a voice system based on my speaking voice. And that voice system has ultimately ended up in billions of smartphones and GPS systems and elevators and cruise ships and software applications around the world, giving people directions, telling them where to go, what to do, while I'm here with you right now.
What did you know at the time how big it was going to be?
Oh, well, that's a big no. Absolutely not. And at this time, at the time this occurred, there was no GPS in general everyday life. It had been used and developed in the military, but not in civilian life.
Well, also with me is Katina Michael, who's a professor of technology, strategy and innovation at the University of Sydney. Katina, you also have a personal connection to this story as well, don't you?
I do, in many different facets.
Talk to me about it.
Well, I have a son who's a budding actor starting out and has done his time as an extra gone into theatre in different ways. And as we know, for many young people trying to find their feet in the acting world, a lot of these very competitive opportunities go to very few number of people. So the landscape is changing markedly, and it is affecting many different people in the workflow, whether it's a pipeline regarding editors, actors, producers, creatives, writers, graphic designers, visual effects artists, and musicians. It's affecting everybody, this AI.
You've got alarm bells going off in a bunch of different parts of your brain here, and it's something that you've been looking at for a while now. When did the alarm bells start to ring for you?
Well, I think perhaps from the beginning, we can talk about cave art for a moment and look at how we expressed ourselves before speech became apparent. But today, I think we can point to computer-generated imagery, CGI, when we looked at how real human actors could actually craft every part of a script in detail and then have that perhaps semi-animated onto the real screen. And then we did see the entry of AI into things like Netflix. Many of our viewers and listeners wouldn't realize when they're watching Netflix, they're watching perhaps original content that has been edited by an AI. So it's already here, but I think when CGI came onto the fore, before the sort of transformer models, I realized, okay, this art is changing.
Robert, your field is the ethics of AI. Let's think about us hungry consumers first. Do we have a right to know what we're watching?
We do have a right to know. The question is whether we care. We're going to the cinema to watch, something very imaginative. We want to be lost in another world. And many of these AI startup companies are saying that they're world-building companies, that they're there for enabling the creative work into everyday hands. So openly making accessible the art of creating a movie to everyone who's got a good story to tell. So almost democratizing this process of generating an AI-generated movie. But the question is whether audiences really care. We do know in some AI agents that are called now AI actors that there are no disclaimers. For example, on an Instagram page, Tilly Norwood doesn't have a disclaimer right on the front of her page saying she's not real. But in the actual posts on her account, there are obvious disclaimers. But do we really care is the question, and should we care? As our protagonist here, Karen, has mentioned to us already. We should.
I'm also with Robert Sparrow, who's a professor of philosophy at Monash University. Robert, you say the idea of discussing what's real in the context of movies is an interesting concept. Talk to me about this.
I do think people are media literate enough not to think that everything they see on the screen is real. There's a sense it's acting. It's not as though, George Clooney, Brad Pitt, they're actually international assassins or, lawyers or whatever it is they're playing. Unless it's a documentary, we're expecting it to be fictional. And now we're familiar with the idea that some of the characters are computer generated, that editing software has been used to remove objects or add explosions. I do think there are contexts where it's really important that people are aware that what they're seeing is completely made up. But if you're going to see a film for entertainment, I'm not sure you need a disclaimer every time a computer program's been involved in the production.
What about the actors themselves, though? Because I feel like there's sort of a kind of mutually agreed suspension of disbelief with movies. Like, yes, the explosions aren't real. Yes, the aliens didn't really invade Earth. But there is a sort of expectation that when something is about really depicting humanity and how a human might react in a situation, that there is an assumption that the actor would be a human.
Look, already some of the actors aren't human. I think we need to understand this as essentially cartoons. This is an animation technology, and it can, it's getting to the point now where it can represent anything that a human being can represent. And so what I think we're seeing is a shift in the artistry from the actor to the character designer and the editor and the director. So I think those people will be capable of expressing emotions and experiences for an audience through the computer-generated actors that they bring to the screen. I don't think it... often the actors actually don't have the experience that they're portraying. They've never lost the loved one to the alien invasion. So they're making it up. I think in the future, the designers, producers, editors and writers will be playing more of a role, and then that will be realised by a AI-generated animation.
You're listening to Life Matters here on ABC Radio National. I'm Tegan Taylor, asking you whether you would like to see AI stars on the big screen, or if it would change your mind about purchasing a ticket or pressing play on your streaming service. One says AI actors would respond better to direction. I'd watch this movie, but I wouldn't attend a movie that was directed by AI. Karen in Hobart says, all for AI, the big actors get paid too much anyway, like most CEOs. Jenny's also invoking costs, saying the tickets would have to be very cheap as it's not an actor who needs to get paid for the role. Karen, this sort of raises an interesting question about remuneration. Can you talk to me about the power imbalance between human performers and the companies that are creating these performers?
I was fascinated to hear about Katina's child being an actor. My son is also about to start out in this industry, and if again, the devaluing of the creative human input has been well underway for a long time. I consider myself the poster child for artist exploitation with my experience, and I have absolutely no idea when and where my speaking voice will show up anywhere in the world, including in real life robots, which is beyond creepy to think that there is that the technology has gone where it has. But the AI actor-like form is not only created by the technology, it is often based on something like an amalgamation of actors' likenesses. And one of the most important questions I want to be asking is, what kind of remuneration are those original performers receiving, and what kind of royalties are they receiving that they are a part of this newly created entity? And this is, the big union strikes in the creative fields in the United States over the last couple of years have been specifically about that. This is wiping out sectors of the industry, background actors, bringing in a bunch of background actors for one day, putting them on a green screen, having them sit, having them stand, having them chat to each other, never needing them again. Because of technology wiping out an entire sector of the industry. This kind of thing is going on day in and day out, or being dreamed of, and the power imbalance and the shift to the tech executives as opposed to the creative, I suppose the entire group and the collaboration. It's it's a fast-moving train downhill. And as a creative, that is very sad to me.
Katina, it strikes me that Tilly Norwood is the perfect PR vehicle. We're talking about it almost because we put a face on it, but actors are the front-facing literal faces of movies, but there's so many people behind the scenes. There's special effects artists, there's makeup artists, there's editors. What are the concerns about those less visible parts of the movie machine?
Well, when we look at this change in workflow and disintermediation, what we're seeing are startups galore in this industry, and it's about either replacement or augmentation, but where we're pitching this is more transformation. So replacement could be, okay, I animate instead of using a human. CGI might have dictated we get lots of human actors in a particular scene to do a particular action, and we grab that and we generate something augmented. And transformation is really this new AI content. But the IP question being raised here is very important. So a lot of these startups are saying, well, it's not our issue. Tech is moving quickly and we're just, jumping on the bandwagon to embrace this change. And one of the things we can do is to do what was said by Karen, is to remunerate our actors at every part of this workflow. And one of the issues being raised at the moment is the scraping of data from videos that are generated by everyday people on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram. And large organizations are being held accountable to terms and conditions. We had OpenAI's CTO, Myra Murati, basically say she didn't know what data OpenAI's models and visual models were being trained on. She stopped mid-sentence talking to Bloomberg. But then, last year we saw Neil Mohan, the CTO of YouTube, bounce back and say, well, if you're using our data and haven't talked to us, you better talk to us. So the platforms are having a field day. Copyright is a real thing of people who are current actors and deceased. So people now are starting to talk to estates of the deceased to bring them back to life through AI. And it's complicated, but it's not enough to sort of shift the blame or point the finger to what we're saying is the toolmaker's problem or the artist's problem. This is a blockchain problem. Potentially this is every time my voice is used, every time my trademark is used, every time my video content from TikTok that I created 10 years ago is used. Well, not 10 years ago for TikTok, but more recently. Should I be remunerated as the original creator? The answer is yes. But how will this happen?
Robert, what do organisations owe individuals in this system when it comes to the use of their data?
So the first thing they owe them is transparency, and I think they probably owe them a small share of the profits would be ideal. Unfortunately. Unfortunately, this has been, the recent history of AI has get people to contribute their photos, their text messages, their videos, because they think it's fun or it's a way of sharing experiences with their friends. No one is reading the small print that says all of this data is going to be used to model the kind of products that you might buy to sell to advertisers, but now to actually generate large language models or video models. So there is a sense here in which kind of people should have known that when they were putting all this stuff online, they were losing a certain amount of control over what was built on that basis. But clearly there is something immoral in, for instance, replicating a particular individual's image and using that to make a new advertisement or a new film. Cases like that, I think it's quite clear that these companies need people's consent, and they should be having a conversation with them about the distribution of the spoils.
On the text line, Matthew says, when the dust settles, movies made by people featuring real actors will become the premium product and will pay for that quality, similar to live performance. You pay for the privilege. Well, Karen, Katina, Robert, thank you all so much for joining me today. Singer and Karen Jacobsen is the Aussie voice of Apple's virtual assistant Siri. Katina Michael is Professor of Technology, Strategy and Innovation and a visiting research scientist at the University of Sydney. And Robert Sparrow is Professor of Philosophy at Monash University.
ABCRN helps you understand the world. Find more of our stories on the ABC Listen app.